Yes, it's a famous Parsha, but what is it doing here?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So this week, Parashat Pinchas here in Eretz Yisrael, the continuation of last week's Parasha, the story of Pinchas. The past 2 years, we've discussed the character of Pinchas, the different aspects of his character, both from the idea of why is he the one to get the reward of Briti Shalom? How is the man who chose violence? How does he become the man of peace by HaKadosh Baruch Hu? How are these two things connected? We also discussed the more interesting question, how come that in this week's Parasha we find Moshe Rabbeinu dying and then Yehoshua becoming the leader after him? That dramatic story, how come then the Parsha is called Pinchas? Why is Pinchas the emphasis of this week's Parasha, not Yehoshua, who is the leader after Moshe Rabbeinu? He should be the emphasis of this week's Parasha. We'll link these two videos at the end of this one. This year, what I want to talk about is the end of the Parsha, the very famous Psukim, the Korbanot of the Moadim, the Korbanot that we read every single Chag on Rosh Chodesh, those same Psukim that we say, why are they brought here? Why are they brought at this stage where Am Yisrael is standing before entering Eretz Yisrael? They seem to be more related and more relevant to Sefer Vaikra, where we talk about Korbanot and where we talk about the Moadim. So why are they brought here? And on top of it, even if you want to talk about them now before entering Eretz Yisrael, how are they connected to the story before that, the story of Moshe Rabbeinu and Yehoshua? What's the connection between the two things? So why is the Parasha of the Korbanot, of the Chagim, brought over here at the end of this week's Parasha? What is it doing here? What is the connection to what's going on in this week's Parasha?
Yeah, this is really out of the blue. I mean, if I would just see these Psukim, I would assume we're in the middle of Sefer Vaikra. So obviously there is a connection. Obviously, this dramatic moment of Moshe being told that his time has come and Moshe asking Hashem to choose someone to lead and Hashem saying it's going to be Yehoshua, and this whole moment of Yehoshua being chosen to switch Moshe, suddenly this Parsha comes in. It has to be deeply tied to what was going on before. And I want to try to take a deeper look at the Psukim, at what exactly is going on here, because I think that'll help us understand the connection and why this suddenly appears here. Because if we take a step back and we see this whole story of Yehoshua, where does that come from? It's not Hashem who suddenly tells Moshe to choose Yehoshua. It's Moshe who's worried. What's going to be after I'm gone? Who's going to stay here? Who's going to lead them? Who's going to continue everything I taught them, everything I did for them? Who's going to be there for them? And then Hashem says, don't worry, it's going to be Yehoshua. And then there's the whole process of Yehoshua being chosen and Moshe sort of handing over this leadership to Yehoshua. So what comes next? What can you say next? What is there more to say? And if we try to think about Moshe Rabbeinu, or in general, if we think of any leader, a leader of a family, a leader of a nation, an important leader who had influence on people, who's leaving them, who's saying goodbye, what do? How do you keep all the messages you've been teaching for years? The greatest worry is, maybe it's all going to just fade away. And, that's the power of time. Time is always moving forward. It's moving to the next step, You're gone. Your time is up. They're going to be on the next thing. Tomorrow is not today. And, that's the scary thing about time, especially for someone whose time is up. It's knowing that time is going to move forward. What you taught them yesterday maybe won't be relevant for tomorrow. Maybe they'll feel it's a new message, a new world, a new leader. Things move on. How do I keep everything I'm trying to teach them, which I know is eternal messages? How do I keep that ingrained in who they are so they take it from here on? And I think that's where this Parsha comes in, because if we look carefully, what are we talking about with these Korbanot? We start with Korbanot Tamid. Korbanot Tamid is not one of the Chagim. It's something we do every single day, twice a day. Then we have Shabbos. Then we have the Chagim. And the word that repeats itself at the beginning and at the end is the concept of B'mo'ado. And Mo'ado, we've spoken about in the past, is this concept of a meeting between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, concept of Korbanot, of bringing us together, these moments where we come together on these Mo'adim. And these Mo'adim, as we see here, this word Mo'ado appears with Korbanot Tamid, meaning every day is Mo'ado. You have Chagim, which are Mo'ado, but you also have twice a day Mo'ado. This Mo'ado is those moments where you change focus. You leave what you're doing and you refocus on that need. And why is this so important here? I think the closing Psukim tell us this. It says, Ele ta'asu laHashem b'mo'adechem. These are what you should do in your mo'adim. Levad minidrechem v'nitvotechem, etc. Meaning, these korbanot are the korbanot that you should do in their time. In their time, as we said, Shabbos, the Chagim, is every single day. Besides for your nedavot, your nedarim, the things you promised, the presents moments, the things you suddenly are excited and want to thank Hashem for something and you want to bring a korban. Those all are great. But now we're not focused on this. Now we're focused on, besides for all of those great things, now we're focused on B'mo'ado, the things that have a set time. And I think this exactly answers what Moshe is so worried. Because as we said, time on the one hand, we see is something which is always continuous. When we want to draw time, we always draw a line, timeline. Right? Because time is moving forward all the time. We're never going back. But if we think about it, we have this concept in Hebrew, we call it Ma'agal Hashana, the cycle of the year. The year, time, as much as it's continuous, it's also moving in a cycle. We have a week, we have a day, every day repeats itself. We have a year. The concept of time moving in a cycle is something a little confusing because it's not a cycle. We're moving forward. But the fact we have a cycle creates stability, creates these anchors into reality. Think about it. We know that tomorrow, although time's moving on, tomorrow is going to be a new morning, and then there's going to be an afternoon, and then there's going to be an evening, and at the end of the week, we're going to have Shabbat, and then next year, and we have the Chagim. These things keep us connected to the past, even in a daily basis. When am I going to do? Yesterday I did this, and today I'm going to do it again, and tomorrow, every morning, I have breakfast. Every Shabbos, I have Shabbos. Every Chag, I can think about what I did last Chag. I can repeat it. I can continue it, I can enhance it. When you think of time as a cycle, it totally changes the ability to do things that are eternal. And this is what someone, especially a leader like Moshe Rabbeinu, needs and is looking for. When Moshe Rabbeinu teaches us the Chagim, he's teaching us something for now, which is going to be true next year, and the year later, and the year later, and not only next year, tomorrow, and the next day. When you focus on B'mo'ado, you're focused on those anchors, those things that will stay steady, that are eternal, that repeat themselves. If we look carefully, we see Moshe start with Korbanot Tamid. And as Moshe Rabbeinu says when he starts with Korbanot Tamid, he says, Olat Tamid ha'asuya b'Har Sinai. He goes back to the first time, back in Har Sinai. That's when we started Olat Tamid. Olat Tamid, Tamid, the eternal Olat, the one we do every single day. And as he says in the closing pasuk, Levad minidrechem v'nidvotechem. Yes, you're going to have new things. You're going to have new promises, new excitements, new nidarim, new nidavot, new times, new things to thank about, things that I couldn't tell you about, I couldn't command you about because they are from the future. They're in the timeline that's moving on and progressing forward. But besides for all that, there's going to be the Moadim. There's going to be the things that go back to Har Sinai, the things that I'm teaching you today. I'm teaching you today how to start your day and how to continue it and how to do your week and how to do your year. And these things, these moments of Mo'adim, of bringing you together with HaKadosh Baruch, I'm starting them now and they're relevant tomorrow. Because tomorrow you're going to have a day just like today. And next year you're going to have a year just like this year. That's what I can give over to you. So these are those two things that Moshe does after he's told that his time is up. He finds the next leader, which represents the continuation, which represents that what I taught you yesterday is not relevant for tomorrow. That's why you need a new leader, a leader that's going to be with you in the future. But the second thing is commanding Am Yisrael about the things that I taught you, the things that will continue in a cycle over and over every day, every week, and every year. And that which we started already in Har Sinai, that I want you to continue with you even while I'm gone.
Yes, definitely there's a statement here by the Torah telling us that now Am Yisrael needs to hold on to something after Moshe is about to leave them. We've discussed this so many times, how throughout the entire journey in the desert, one of the things Am Yisrael had to go through was this process from Avdei Paro to Avdei Hashem, leaving that dependency on a human being and trusting HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where at some point suddenly it went from Paro to Moshe, which was a huge problem for itself. And especially now, again, the new generation that was not in Mitzrayim or was too young in Mitzrayim, they too have to learn how to live without Moshe Rabbeinu as they enter Eretz Yisrael. They have to remember that their life doesn't depend on a leader, or a certain leader, or a different leader, but it depends on their relationship, on the closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, on getting close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, on being close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And like you were saying, this Parasha of the Korbanot has a few concepts that repeat each other. Number one is the Korbanot, the idea of a Korban, and number two, like you were saying, of the Moed. And we discussed in the past this idea of Moed, of being present and being connected, of Oil Moed, and being in the spot where you are. But also, as we've said many times in our videos, you have to pay attention to the language the Torah uses. And if we go back not only to the story of Moshe and Yehoshua, but to the story just before that, the story story of Bnot Tslofchad, which also seems not connected to anything and is suddenly brought over here after we had the counting of Am Yisrael that all the Mefarshim tell us this is part of the second part of Sefer Bamidbar, of the entering Eretz Yisrael. Now they have to be counted just like they were counted at the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar, a year after they left Mitzrayim. So then too, also here they have to be counted. But this story of Bnot Tslofchad seems to not be connected to anything. The story of the daughters of Tslofchad who suddenly approach Moshe Rabbeinu and say, we are 5 sisters. According to halacha, we cannot inherit a land of our fathers because our father did not have a son, but we also do not want to lose out on the land of our father. What should we do? And then Moshe Rabbeinu goes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and he gets the halacha, the psak halacha of they do get to get a land, and so on and so on. And when you look at that story, how it begins, there's 2 very interesting verbs over there in the parasha. The way it starts with the word vatikravna bnot tzlofchad, the daughters of Tzlofchad came closer. It's a very interesting word the Torah uses. Why does it have to say they came closer? The Torah should say that they came, vayavo. What does it mean they came closer? But then after vatikravna bnot tzlofchad, after they come closer to their own shevet, to their own tribe, they go and stand in front of Moshe, vata'amodna lifnei Moshe. And seeing these 2 verbs and seeing these 2 words over here, remembering what we just said, what we've been discussing, you have to see the connection between the different things, between the concept of getting closer and the concept of being present over there in front of Moshe. Because like you were saying, after a death, after somebody loses a relative, one of the close relatives, one of the feelings they want to have is this closeness. They're looking to be close to someone. They're looking for that love. They need that supportive system around them, and usually that's what people need. That's what the Shiva is about, having that closeness, having that family, having that gathering of feeling close, feeling that support around them. This is what Bnot Tslofchad are looking for. This is what they felt that's what they needed when they got closer, when they came closer to the tribe, looking for that support system. And that's what gives them the ability to stand in front of Moshe, to be present in front of Moshe, like the Mefarshim saying, like the Orach Chaim, for example, brings the difference between Vatikravna and Vata'amona. Having the backing of their tribe gives them the ability to go and stand in front of Moshe. And taking it back to what we were saying, this is what the Torah is teaching Am Yisrael over here. Feeling the closeness, the support of their family, of their tribe around them, that's what gives them the ability to stand strong in front of Moshe and ask that request and have that request towards Moshe. And going back to what we were saying, maybe this is what the Torah is also teaching Am Yisrael over here, that after Moshe Rabbeinu leaves, after that leader, that seemingly connection between Am Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu leaves this world, Am Yisrael are going to feel alone. Am Yisrael are going to feel like they don't have that connection anymore. They need that closeness. This is what these Korbanot are about. But just like you were saying, this is not nidvotechem ve'olotechem. This is not when you have the feeling that you want to get close, you bring, because sometimes we don't have that feeling. Sometimes we can't feel that feeling. Sometimes we feel the opposite feeling, that we don't want to be close. Sometimes we feel lost. Sometimes we feel distant. Sometimes we are not there in order to bring those Korbanot. This is where the concept of tamid, the concept of consistency, of always, day and night, Korbanot tzibur, Korbanot that come from the public, that's where it's so important. That's where it comes in to tell us that even when you don't feel that closeness, even when you don't have that closeness, these Korbanot are still being brought. These Korbanot are still there. The relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always still there. This is the importance of the Korbanot when the base of Mikdash is built. This is the importance of having a minyan nowadays, where you go to daven, to feeling that connection through the consistency, through the community around you, through the closeness, through the kirva to the people around you, through that, feeling the closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, feeling the kirva to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and giving you the ability, the strength to stand strong where you are present today, where you are today in your life. This is what these Psukim of the Korbanot is about. It's not about the Chagim. It's not about sitting in the sukkah or bringing Arba Minim on sukkahs or not eating chametz, because these are not even mentioned here. These Psukim are about the Korbanot. The Korban from the concept of lehit karev, of getting closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of feeling closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The concept of a Korban tzibur, that again, sometimes as a personal human being, in your personal feelings, you don't feel that close. You can't feel that close. You feel lost. You feel far away, and you need something else to bring you in. You need that connection, that closeness to the community around you, to your tzibur around you, in order to make you feel close, in order to make you part of Am Yisrael again. This is what these Korbanot are about. This is what these Psukim are about. And especially here, especially after Moshe Rabbeinu is told that he's about to die, after Yehoshua is inaugurated in front of all of Am Yisrael, because again, when you look at the Psukim of Moshe Rabbeinu asking to have somebody in charge of Am Yisrael, he's not only asking for someone to be in charge, he's not only asking ifkod ala eda. He's not only asking for somebody to lead the tzibur, to lead the nation, he's asking for somebody to be there that can bring them in and take them out. And he doesn't only say it once, he says it twice, because as Rashi says, he wants somebody who is close to Am Yisrael, that will be there with Am Yisrael, because this is what this is all about feeling that closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whether we have a leader, we don't have a leader, but feeling that closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the Korbanot, through the davening, because we are part of Am Yisrael, part of the nation that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's nation.
Yeah, it's very interesting, that connection between Bnot Tslofchad before and the Korbanot after. You know, it's interesting when you think about it, that just before Moshe is told that his time is up and he's going to leave, the Parsha right before is when Am Yisrael, in this case Bnot Tslofchad, come with a request, and Moshe doesn't have the answer. And all Moshe does is again that word, Vayakrev Moshe et mishpatan el Hashem. In other words, Moshe is about to step away. What he does is he says, you don't need me. I'm going to bring your mishpat to HaKadosh Baruch. Just before he leaves, this is that last lesson that they get. It's not about me, Moshe. You came up with this. It was your request. And Hashem also answers, yes, they're correct. Ken not tzlofchad dovrot. Vayakrev Moshe et mishpatan el Hashem. He's bringing them closer. And then he brings all of Am Yisrael closer with these korbanot. And you know, people tend, especially today, to get excited about the individual things, about your nidarim, your nidavot, things that you offer, that you bring into this world. And we've spoken about them in the past, and they're important. But as the Parsha ends here, levad minidrechem v'nidvotechem. Those are all important. But besides for all of those, what really keeps us together, especially in a moment like this of losing a leader like Moshe Rabbeinu, is, as you mentioned, the tzibur, the korbanot tzibur, these things that we do together as a community that brings us together, and these mo'adim, these set times, this consistency every day, every week of this korban, of this kirbah, bringing us together with HaKadosh Baruch. Those two things are what hold us. And on top of them, you can bring all the other individual things, your nidarim and nidavot and everything else that you're going to grow and continue to grow, Bezrat Hashem, even after me, Moshe Rabbeinu, am out of the story. Those are all great, but it has to start on that basis that we're taught here in the Parsha.
Wonderful, wonderful. And since it's Erev Yud Zayin Betmuz, also we have to mention the famous Mishnah in Tanis that says that one of the reasons we fast on Shiva Asar Betmuz, first of all, is because the walls of Yerushalayim were broken into, and second of all, Butala Tamid, the Korban of the Tamid, the most consistent Korban we had in the Mikdash, was stopped. This is exactly what we were saying until now. What holds Am Yisrael together, the wall around us that holds us together, is being part of the Tzibur, is the consistency, the daily consistency of doing the Korban, of this relationship with Kadosh Baruch Hu, day in, day out, through the tzibur, through the community around us as one. But as usual, we're out of time, so we'll have to end here. As I mentioned, we'll link last year's videos at the end of this one. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to comment below on YouTube, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet subscribed, and of course, like it and share with your friends. And shkoyach Yitzi.
Shkoyach Tuvia, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom to you, Bsorot Tovot, and Emetz Hashem. We'll talk again next week.